Exempt from positive commandments which are time-bound. This is a general rule, so it only applies to positive mitzvot, not to negative mitzvot. And a woman is exempt from tzitzis because it's time-bound. You don't wear tzitzis at night. You don't have to wear tzitzis at night. They're exempt from tefillin because we don't wear tefillin at night, and we also don't wear tefillin on Shabbat or Yom Tov. A woman is exempt from shofar, strangely enough, because it's Zaman Garama, even though the custom is they do it. A woman is exempt from sukkah. A woman is exempt from lulav, right? These are famous cases of Zaman Garama that women are exempt from. However, side by side with the famous cases of exemption are exceptions to the rule, right? The famous rule that every rule has an exception, to which that rule there are also exceptions, but okay. And one of the major exceptions, I'm not going to go over all the exceptions, is Kiddush. Women are obligated in Kiddush, both Friday night and Shabbos morning, and whether it's Shabbat or whether it's Yom Tov, even though Kiddush is obviously a time-bound commandment. But the Talmud says, this is the Gemara in Arvei Psachim, that this is an exception because of the juxtaposition of Shamar and Zachar. Remember, the Ten Commandments, the Aseres HaDibros, are repeated twice in the Torah. Once, or stated twice in the Torah. They're repeated once. One's in Parshas Yisro, and the other is in Parshas V'eschanan, and 90% is the same, but there are some differences, and one of the major differences is the fourth commandment. In Yisro is Zachor, remember the Shabbos, and in V'eschanan, the fourth commandment is Shamor, observe the Shabbos, and Chazal understand remembering the Shabbos is Kiddush, sanctifying it. Observing the Shabbos is refraining from Malacha. Now, which did Hashem say? So Chazal say, Zachor v'Shamor were said v'dibur echad, that somehow God said them at the same time. So although textually they're not juxtaposed, one is in Yisro and one is V'eschanan, you can't simply talk about a juxtaposition. There is no textual juxtaposition, but there is a, so to speak, verbal or oral juxtaposition, because God said both of those words at the same time. Therefore, what is our drasha? Our drasha is whoever has the negatives of Shabbos will also have the positives of Shabbos. And since women are certainly not allowed to do forbidden Shabbos work, because that's a negative commandment, they are also included in the positivity aspect of Kiddush. So this is very, very important. Kiddush is absolutely a yotzei min haklal to the rule of Zaman Garama, and that does mean that if a woman is by herself, she absolutely must make Kiddush. There's no heter for a woman not to make Kiddush. And even, although I'm going to talk about this later, about some controversy, but derech klal, there is no halachic principle, there's no halachic impediment for a woman making Kiddush for another man. Because if men and women are equal in their obligation, a woman could be motzi a man, just as a man could be motzi a woman. I'll discuss later that there's some subtleties about this, but the bottom line actually is a woman could be motzi a man. Theoretically, a woman could be motzi a man that's not her husband, that she's not related to. A woman could be motzi, theoretically, now don't quote me on this. Theoretically, a woman after shul on Shabbos in the morning can be honored to make Kiddush for the whole congregation, provided she doesn't sing it, so we don't have a co-isha problem. Yeah. Is it what? Yes. Well, the woman needs to drink from the wine the same way a man would have to drink from the wine. For both meals. I'll discuss that also. But men and women are exactly equal when it comes to Kiddush. Is what, drinking the wine? Okay, all right. Baruch Hashem. My favorite is the cholent, but okay, you can like the wine. Okay, each his own, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Are said together. Why are they printed separate? Why are they two separate parshas?
Well, that's a good question. Remember, in Parshas V'eschanan, it's not a new Decalogue. Moshe is reviewing what the Jewish people said. So it's always going to be an interesting question. If everything that Moshe says in V'yaschanan was said by God in Yisrael, so why does the Torah split it up? Again, the Meforshim actually explain that since Moshe is addressing the Jewish people right before they're entering the land of Israel, so he emphasizes those aspects that are going to be most relevant. In the Midbar, Malacha was not a big issue because even during the week they didn't have to do Malacha. Everything was Daman. Once they come to Eretz Yisrael, Malacha becomes a very important activity. So it's a question of emphasizing things at different times. So let's go with the simple principle that because women are chayavot in Kiddush, they could be motzi a man, and if they don't do it barabim or whatever, they're concepts of tznius or whatever it is, but they're not concrete halachas. Men and women are exactly equal when it comes to Kiddush. Again, I'll discuss a little later. There may be some subtleties even on that, but the halacha is very clear. Now, let's now go to Havdalah. I want to go over this again. Women are chayavot in Kiddush because of Zachor v'Shamor. Are women chayavot in Havdalah? So this is a machlokes among Rishonim, among medieval commentaries. There are some commentaries that say that the same way Kiddush is a way of honoring Shabbos. You honor Shabbos bichnisaso when Shabbos comes in. Havdalah is also a way of honoring Shabbos b'yetziato. And therefore, if we compare Zachor and Shamor to create an obligation of Kiddush, then hu hadin, the same thing would be true, that we would create an obligation of Havdalah. So according to view number one, we'll call that view number one, a woman's obligation in Kiddush woman's obligation in Havdalah is the same as her obligation in Kiddush, and that's the same as a man's. Okay, that's view number one. View number two is that the hekesh, the juxtaposition, the verbal juxtaposition that the Talmud makes, it only mentions Kiddush, and therefore with Havdalah we apply the rule rather than the exception, and the rule is going to be Zaman Garama, women are exempt. So because of this, women are exempt. Now, so we have a machlokas. If you're asking me, are women obligated in Havdalah? Some say yes, some say no. So, what do you do halachically when you have such a machlokas? So for Ashkenazim, the answer is very, very simple. Because let me explain what the answer is. For Ashkenazim, the answer is this. Remember, Ashkenazim take the position that even if a woman is exempt from a mitzvah tasei shesman grama, like shofar and lulav, if she wants to do it, she can do it and even make a bracha. So if anyone, most people I guess are Ashkenazi, so for the Ashkenazi women here, if you take a lulav on Sukkot, you make the bracha asher kiddishana b'mitzvosa v'tzivanu. So, if Ashkenazi women have the option of making brachot on mitzvah sasei shesman garama, then if we are uncertain if they're chayavot in Havdalah or not, the obvious answer is they should make it anyway, because if they're chayavot, they have to do it. And if they're not chayavot, they're permitted to do it. It's not a bracha in vain. So therefore, if there's a doubt if they're obligated or not, the short answer is they can either hear it from somebody or do it themselves. And again, if a woman does Havdalah herself, which she can do, and sometimes must do if there's no one else around, they drink the wine, right? So anything you've heard about a woman not drinking the wine of Havdalah is only if someone is making it for her. If she's making it herself, she 100% drinks the wine of... I'll get to the candle. I know you mentioned that last week.
Can
now,
she do this for a man?
Say again?
Can she do Havdalah?
Okay. So here we have a difficult problem. Here, since there is a shayla, if she is obligated in Havdalah, so she might not be obligated, and therefore her Havdalah might be optional, she cannot make Havdalah for a man, because a man is obligated, the woman may not be obligated. That is the difference between Kiddush and Havdalah. Women are definitively obligated in Kiddush, and because they're definitively obligated in Kiddush, she is exactly the same as a man. She can make Kiddush for a man. But Havdalah is a machlokas. Is she obligated or not obligated? So even though mitzad herself, she should do it, because benkach or benkach, it's either an obligatory Havdalah or an optional Havdalah, she would not be able to be motzi a man. That's a very good point. The man would have to make the Havdalah himself, and if he can't talk, problems. He'll find somebody. He has to find a man to make Havdalah. Now, this solution is only a solution for Ashkenazim, because you'd have a problem with Sephardim, because Sephardim, and when I say Sephardim, I mean I trace this. We trace this back to Rav Yosef Karo in the Shulchan Aruch, which in turn goes as far back as the Rambam. So it really originates from the Rambam. The Rambam takes the position, which at first glance is a logical position, that even though women can certainly perform mitzvot that are Zman Garama, but they can't make a bracha on it, because how can they make the statement, Asher Kiddishana b'mitzvosav, that God sanctified us with His commandments, v'tzivanu, if they're not commanded? And therefore, according to the Rambam and Rav Yosef Karo, if a woman were to make a bracha on lulav, it would be a bracha levatala. Now, you will find many Sephardic girls who do make brachas, but as Rav Ovadia said, they have been contaminated by Ashkenazic. They have been contaminated by Chabad and Ashkenazic Beis Yaakovs, and he always was very, very emphatic that they must return to the Sephardi tradition. Now, Lemais, I do want to say that the Moroccan Kehilot actually followed the Ramah in this, and they do make a bracha, and they were very offended when Rav Ovadia Yosef accused them of simply, adopting Chabad customs, because Chabad has a lot of schools in Morocco, etc. They said that we have been doing this for 1,000 years. So if you're a Moroccan Sephardi, in this halacha, you follow Ashkenazic. Well, I shouldn't say follow. They don't describe it as following Ashkenazic minhagim. They say this is our direct Messiah. Our direct Messiah was, we did make brachos, and we did not follow the Rambam in this. So my problem is this. The problem is, what is a Sephardi woman supposed to do if she's not able to hear Havdalah from a man? If there's a machlokas, if she's obligated or not obligated, so the problem is this. If she's obligated, she must. But if she's not obligated, she can't. See, like Ashkenazim, you don't have a problem. So Rav Ovadia was asked this question, and Rav Ovadia actually said very, very simple. He said, Sephardim paskin, that women are obligated in Havdalah. Meaning, unlike Ashkenazim that treat this as a question, Sephardim simply say women are chayavot. Therefore, she could make Havdalah, and she could be motzi a man at that point. Okay, so Rav Ovadia, again, I mean, his decision is not accepted by everybody either, but he basically says both Ashkenazim and Sephardim don't have a problem with a woman making Havdalah, but the methodology is a little different for both. For Ashkenazim, it is a machlokas if women are obligated or not, but either way they can do it, because they either must or they can. Therefore, they should. For Sephardim, that wouldn't be a choice, because if it would be a machlokas, then they wouldn't be able to do it, because maybe it's a bracha levatala. But Rav Ovadia says, we hold it's not a machlok. I mean, we hold it's very, very clear. Women are chayavas. Again,
How did the Sephardim get around the ideas of the Rambam?
Which idea of the Rambam?
They can't make a bracha because you can't make the bracha.
No, that's true. No, that's true normally. But Sephardim maintain Havdalah is included in the Kiddush exception.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you're right. When a woman is exempt, the Rambam says they can't make a bracha. But Sephardim will maintain Havdalah is included in the Kiddush exception. Now, yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the basis for the argument that Havdalah was not allowed. You said why it could be allowed, like Kiddush, but I didn't understand the opposite.
No, the reason is this. The reason is Kiddush is time-bound, and Havdalah is time-bound. So in terms of general rule, women would be exempt. The Talmud says there's an exception to the general rule for Kiddush. It does not explicitly state there's an exception for the general rule for Havdalah. So the question is whether you compare them. That's the machlokas. Yeah.
What about lighting candles for Sfaradiot on Friday night?
Let me just say, no. But the answer once again is that Ner Shabbos is also an exception. Meaning, be sure you understand this. The Rambam statement that a woman is not allowed to make a bracha on a time-bound commandment only refers to time-bound commandments that women are exempted from. Anything that a woman must do, such as Kiddush and such as Shabbos candles, of course the Rambam would say they can make a bracha.
But I've heard that if they're in the same room, there's only one person.
So the question is lighting candles if you're lighting extra candles. So that has nothing to do with the Rambam. That's a general rule. Are you allowed to make a bracha on lighting Shabbos candles if there are other candles in the room that are giving light? That's not because of man grama. That's a general question about Shabbos. And there we paskin if you light it in a place where it's giving some extra illumination. But that's not connected with Svardim. That's a separate issue of what is called Tosefet Ora. Can you make a bracha on additional light if there's already light? Okay.
Some people are not fit to put all the lights off before the light.
Before they light. That's correct. That's correct. But again, as I said, that's not an Ashkenazi Sephardi thing.
Turn them back on.
Huh?
How do you turn them back on for the meal?
Well, there's going to be an issue. If lighting the candles is a woman accepting Shabbos, she can't do it. Her husband would have to do it, or the kids would do it. Turn the lights back on. Yeah. Or the woman could make a condition that she's not mekabelet until she turns the light back on, because that's part of the ceremony of the hadlakas neros. Okay. I'm sorry.
You said that a woman can't make Havdalah for a man, but let's say that a man becomes in a position where he can't make Havdalah. Somebody else to do it. What happens then?
I understand. It's a very difficult situation, but you'll have to get a man to come over and make Havdalah.
Okay.
Now, if it's a bar mitzvah boy,
that's a rule you can't bend.
Yeah, I think you can't bend it. I mean, it's a problem. I mean, I'll give you an example of shofar. I mean, let's assume a person is bedridden or housebound, and the only person who could blow shofar for him is his wife. It's not going to work. Unfortunately, it's not going to work, because a woman cannot be motzi a man in the blowing of the shofar, because it's zman garama, and a mitzvah that a woman is patur from, shivadai cannot be motzi, whether it's Ashkenazi or Sephardi. Now, let's go over the components of Havdalah, because I want to take the analysis a little further. We make a bracha on wine, and Havdalah, that's parallel to Kiddush, right? Kiddush has bracha on wine and a blessing, but we make two extra blessings in the middle of Havdalah that we don't do in Kiddush. We make a bracha over besamim, right, spices, and we make a bracha over a candle, over a flame, over a fire. Now, where does that come from? Like, why is that there? So the blessing, the bracha over besamim, which, by the way, if you smell spices even during the week, you have to make a bracha, meaning that is actually a birchos hanenin. The same way when you eat something, you make a bracha. When you smell aromatic spices, you make a bracha. Berei minei besamim is not unique to Havdalah, but Chazal said that we should incorporate besamim in the Havdalah ceremony. The reason is because on Shabbos we have an extra soul, a neshama yesera. We lose that neshama yesera when Shabbos leaves. We are weak. Yeah, even psychologically, we feel spiritually that we should feel that way, actually. If you don't feel that way, maybe Shabbos, you didn't experience Shabbos enough. But we feel weakened. We feel debilitated. We feel a little bit lost. So we have smelling salts to revive us, the neshama yesera. So that's Borei Mei Besamim. Now, why do you make the bracha Borei Merei? So this is fascinating. There are two separate reasons for the bracha Borei Morei Ha'esh, and this is going to have some very far-reaching consequences. Reason number one is it is connected to Havdalah proper. And that is that fire is one of the mechanisms by which we do much productive labor. It kind of represents our control over nature. And since on Shabbos we weren't allowed to exercise that authority, so we say, Bracha, now we're now entering the week where I can use fire again, by extension, Malacha. So according to that, Borei Morei Ha'esh is part of the Havdalah ceremony. That's interpretation number one. Interpretation number two is it has nothing to do with Shabbos. It has nothing to do with Havdalah. It is simply connected to Saturday night. That is, Chazal had a Masorah that Motzei Shabbos, Hashem introduced Adam to the gift of fire. Fire is a gift. Again, fire is can be very, very destructive, but the world as we know it could not exist without fire, and therefore this is a bracha of gratitude to Hashem for the gift of fire. Now, this has some interesting repercussions. What is the halacha generally? For men and women, these are not men-women distinctions. If I didn't make Havdalah Saturday night, I just didn't make it. So the halacha is I make Havdalah Sunday, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday. Because the concept is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are still connected to the old Shabbos. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are connected to the new Shabbos. So you can make Havdalah until sunset on Tuesday, till Shki on Tuesday. With the bracha, all the brachas. Not only can you must. You must. But the question is, and that includes even Besamim, which anyway, you can do Besamim any day you want. But it's interesting that Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh you only make Saturday night. If you missed Havdalah Saturday night, you do not make Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh. Reason? Because we actually paskin that Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh is not part of Havdalah. It is a gratitude to Hashem for the gift that He gave us Motzei Shabbos. Once it's not Motzei Shabbos, can't do it anymore. In fact, this even explains Tisha B'Av. If you know, when Tisha B'Av, let's say, falls out on Shabbos and you're going to fast Saturday night, or the 9th of Av is Sunday, so it begins Saturday night. So we don't make Havdalah, obviously, because we're not allowed to drink. Although I do remember, I was once at somebody's house years and years ago, and the person was not so knowledgeable, but a very well-intentioned, sincere person. And Tisha B'Av was going to begin, so he had this dilemma. He acted so quickly, I couldn't even stop him. Like, he said he made Havdalah, Motzei Shabbos, he drank the wine, and then said, okay, now we're going to begin the fast of the 9th of Av. That is, that's an understandable mistake, maybe, but that's totally incorrect. We obviously do not make Havdalah until Sunday night, but you may recall, we do make on Tisha B'Av night, Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh. Now, why do I do that? Why don't I just defer it with Havdalah? The answer is because Borei Ma'orei can only be recited Saturday night. Now, so repercussion number one of that it's a thankfulness for the gift of fire is it's only Saturday night, no other time. But repercussion number two is some opinions say that even if women are chayavos in Havdalah, they may not be chayavos in the bracha over fire, because if fire is not part of the Havdalah ceremony, it just becomes a mitzvah taseh shazman garama. It's a time-bound commandment of Saturday night. It's not covered by the Kiddush or the Havdalah exception, because it's not Havdalah, it's not Kiddush. So some would say that women are exempt from Ha'esh. But here's the question. The Mishnah Berurah actually brings an opinion that a woman should not, that when a woman makes Havdalah, she should not make the bracha over the candle. Now the question is, what's the logic there? Even if women are exempt from this mitzvah, But Ashkenazim maintain she's allowed to make the bracha. So why shouldn't Borei Morei or Eish at least be an allowable bracha, even if it's not a mandatory bracha, right? What's the problem here? So Lamaisa, the Mishnah Berurah's maskana is that even though there is a discussion whether a woman is chayevet in Borei Morei or Eish, there is no problem in her making Borei Morei Eish. Now, for Svardim, there might be a problem. There might be a problem because, again, Rav Ovadia did say women are chayavos in Havdalah, but if Eish is not part of Havdalah, you're back to Zman Garama, and then they couldn't make it. So it could be that the bracha over Eish might be a machlokes, Ashkenazim and Svardim. But Ashkenazim women, for sure, will make the bracha over Eish. Yeah.
You're the first rabbi who I heard said that women should include Morei Ha'esh and Havdalah. Most of the rabbis I spoke to said if you're making it alone, you don't say.
That's very surprising. It is very, very surprising. Okay, I'm not telling you to depart from whatever psak you were given, but this is my understanding. Yeah.
I'm confused over the Tisha B'Av on
Motzei Shabbos.
say Tisha
Yeah.
B'Av.
Yeah.
If it's Shabbat, if it's Sunday.
Yes. So Sunday night.
It or not?
No. So Saturday night.
Shabbat it starts.
Yes, Saturday night you only say Eish, nothing else.
No, you mean Sunday.
No, on Tisha B'Av, you say it.
If Tisha B'Av is starting, If Tisha B'Av is starting Saturday night, we make Borei Morei Ha'esh, and that's it.
I say that before he comes home from shul. I just say it on a night to be able to start doing stuff.
No, one second. You're confusing two different things. If you're talking about to say the words Hamavdil bein Kodesh L'chol to do malacha, yeah, that's fine. But I'm talking about a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem with Hashem's name, Elokeinu melech haolam, Borei Morei Ha'esh. So on Tisha B'Av, we light Tisha B'Av night, Saturday night, we light a Havdalah candle. It's kind of eerie because it's the only, actually reminds me a little bit, I don't want to get into politics, but the president of Harvard, Claudine Gay, is going through a difficult time right now. We should daven for her. No. I feel sorry for her. No, but she's not really a great friend of the Jewish people. Okay, maybe it's not so important whether she is or not. But at some point, she decided this year to go to Hanukkah lighting at Harvard, and for some reason they gave her a blowtorch to light something. So somebody said it really was, from her perspective, it was a very unfortunate picture. It's like she's having this blowtorch against so I don't know if she was set up or not, but that's the thing. But it is an interesting visual that the night of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, we have a fire. We're lighting a fire, which is connected with the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Yeah.
In our communities, women did not make Havdalah at all. They had to look for a man all over the place to make Havdalah.
Well, minhagim are minhagim, but there's no reason for that because again, if you're Ashkenazi, then even if a woman is Beturah, she could do it. So there wouldn't be any problem. And as I say, the minhag of not drinking the wine does not apply to when you're making Havdalah yourself. Yeah. So yeah. I say again, I don't hear you. Yeah. No, so the well, it's interesting. Theoretically, you are allowed to smell spices on Tisha B'Av, but the minhag is that we defer it to Sunday night. So the only thing we do is Eish, and the wine. Well, actually, wine is an interesting issue. In other words, when you make Havdalah, again, I don't want to go over the laws of Tisha B'Av necessarily, because just since we hit upon it. So when Tisha B'Av is Saturday night, Sunday, right? So Saturday night you make Borei Morei Eish. That's it. After the fast, Sunday night, you make a full Havdalah without Eish. Everything else you do, Besamim, etc. The question is, do you drink wine? Do you make it on wine? Because let me explain the issue. The issue is that during the 9 days, we don't have meat or wine except on Shabbos, and even for Havdalah, we use beer or whatever it is. Now, the meat restrictions of the 9 days, the eating and drinking, meat and wine of the 9 days, extend even to the 10th of Av, till the middle of the day. So that actually means when I'm making Havdalah Sunday night, it's already the 10th of Av, but I'm not supposed to have wine until Chatzos, the next day. So some will be machmir when they make Havdalah after Tisha B'Av, that they'll do it on beer. Others say that because this is a mitzvah of Havdalah, so the chumrah of waiting until Chatzos does not have to be observed. So whatever you do, you're okay, but there are two different minhagim about that. In fact, some opinions actually maintain, even during the 9 days proper, even the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, one could have wine. But even if you're machmer on that, to be machmer after Tisha B'Av is being stricter. Many say stricter than you have to. Then you have to be. Yeah.
If you hold that the Eish has to do with the gift of Hashem for Eish, shouldn't it be very obligatory for women also?
So, well, the answer, again, the technical answer would be that it is a time-bound commandment, meaning to say it's a time-bound situation, and it's not covered by the Kiddush exception because it's not part of Kiddush and Havdalah. Now, you're asking, but maybe there ought to be an independent logic, just as we say, because they benefited from the Exodus, they have to eat matzah, and they were saved in the Hanukkah story. So why don't we say the same type of thing? It's a very good question. It's a very good question. There's a kind of afhein hayu bioso hanes, that type. Let me think about that. Okay. So yeah.
If you say Hamavdil and Kodesh L'chol,
yes.
Are you still obliged to hear?
Absolutely. This is a very important point. There are two Havdalahs. In a regular Motzei Shabbos, there are two different Havdalahs that we make. For the people who daven Mariv, there's a Havdalah paragraph in the Amida. And for the people who don't daven Mariv, they say Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, or even Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. And that is Havdalah number 1. And that Havdalah allows you to do work. But it does not yet allow you to eat. You can't eat any food till you hear Havdalah number 2. Havdalah number 2 is the recitation of Havdalah over wine or grape juice with besamim and the Havdalah candle. So even if a person did Havdalah number 1, they are obligated to either hear or say Havdalah number 2. In fact, a whole interesting question. How can I... Motzei Shabbos, right? You're not allowed to do malacha until you at least say the words Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. Right? You can't do malacha. Technically, the malacha restriction remains in effect until Tuesday. if I didn't say Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, I could not do malacha until Tuesday Shkia. So the question is, it's always nice to come up with a new chumrah of the month, and that is, am I allowed to call a non-religious cab driver Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of the week because, well, he can't eat. Yeah, but he doesn't. That's not my responsibility. But if I call him to drive me somewhere, he's doing malacha without saying Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. So the question becomes, how am I allowed to ask him to drive me? I'm asking a Jew to do a malacha for me in a period where it's forbidden. That's an interesting chumrah. So all cabs can only be taken Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Friday you got to be careful not to ask for it so late that he'll be driving back on Shabbos. So Friday is going to be a short day. L'maisa, the poskim do permit it. The poskim do permit it. They say Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol is not like a magic word. It simply means if a person has decided it's not Shabbat anymore. So that's kind of Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. Yeah.
To vary things or not have one solid mitzvah?
Well, your question is a very excellent question, but it goes back to the Talmud. I mean, you open up the Talmud, you open up the Mishnah. So when do you meet the first machlokas? You meet the first machlokas, literally the second line of the Mishnah. It says, Mei Masai Koren Eshma Bi'arvin. When do you start reading the Shema of Ma'ariv? We already have. So that actually, there's no machlokas, although there's a brisa. It says, when the Kohanim can eat their truma at night. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we have one halacha, which everybody agrees upon, although that's also a machlokas, but at least in the Mishnah. Okay, but then it says, how long do you have to read it? Like, when does it end? 3 opinions already. So you get hit with the machlokas like the second line of the Mishnah already. And every page of the Gemara is machlokas, machlokas, machlokas. And people say, well, if halacha is the will of Hashem, and halacha is Hashem telling us how to live our lives, then how could it be that everything is uncertain, everything is unclear? So that means what? 20% of the, let's talk about Jews who keep mitzvahs. So let's talk about Jews who don't. 20% of the people keeping mitzvahs are doing it wrong because they're maybe following a view that is incorrect. And so that would mean a majority of Jews who want to keep the Torah are not keeping it. So it's a very excellent question, but the short answer is Hashem created a process where He gave the interpretation of His will to the Chachamim, and if the Chachamim follow the precedents and the methodology, then whatever they come up with, Hashem accepts. So if you have a machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, or whatever it is, we say Elu v'Elu. Hashem will accept both of them as legitimate, even though one of them by definition has to be wrong, but operationally and behaviorally, Hashem legitimates. Now, if you're asking the question, who has the right to come up with these different opinions? That is a good question. The short answer is this, though. Even today, different opinions come up. You have a machlokas. But it has to be based on authoritative sources. So a rabbi today could not argue with the Talmud, but a rabbi today could argue with how to interpret something in the Talmud. So the later generations are bound by the precedents, but then there can be different interpretations of those precedents. I mean, lahavdil, I don't want to make it too secular, but lahavdil, this is how any legal system works. A legal system deals with questions based on the precedents, the authoritative precedents, in which it's bound to those precedents, but there's still going to be interpretation. Hashem gave a Torah in which there is supposed to be interpretation. People make a mistake when they think that Hashem gave Moshe the answer to every question explicitly. Hashem didn't tell Moshe, as far as I know, can you use a microwave for milchiks and fleishiks? He didn't tell Moshe what is the rule of surrogate motherhood. He didn't tell Moshe about collateral damage in fighting against Hamas or whatever it is. Rather, he gave Moshe principles. He gave Moshe principles, and our job is to take those principles and apply them to new situations. So it's a much more dynamic. Thank you so much. It's a much more dynamic process than just going over, just passing things down like a relay race. But I'll tell you an interesting story. The Chafetz Chaim, who was younger than Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, once wanted to visit Rav Chaim to ask him some shaylas. Rav Chaim was considered to be the Gadol Hador when the Chafetz Chaim was younger. And Rav Chaim was davening mincha, so the Chafetz Chaim was sitting in brisk, waiting for Rav Chaim to finish mincha. And as soon as Rav Chaim finished mincha, a guy came in off the street and simply said, Rebbe, how come there's so much machlokas? Everything is machlokas. He doesn't mean fighting, he means arguments in halacha. Everything's machlokas. So Rav Chaim looked at him, and Rav Chaim thought for around a minute and said, you're very wrong. For every machlokas, there are many, many, many areas of agreement and consensus that are not articulated. Machlokas is the visible tip of the iceberg of Talmudic discussion that presupposes a tremendous amount of consensus. So, for example, when the Mishnah says, from when do you read the Shema? That presupposes there's a mitzvah of Kriya Shema, and you do it twice a day. And then you have machloksim about detail. The Mishnah in Sukkah has a machlokas. If a Sukkah is more than 20 amos high, is it kosher? Machlokas. But that presupposes there's such a thing as sukkah, it has schach. So Rav Chaim actually told the man, yeah, it's true that the machlokas is the thing that's emphasized, because that's the controversy. But every machlokas presupposes a tremendous amount of agreement. I mean, I'll tell you, sometimes, learning with Balei Tshuva, they sometimes are disheartened because they come for the truth and they hear that everything seems to be a machlokas. I always tell people, if you're taking a halacha bechina and it's multiple choice, yes, no, machlokas, put machlokas, you'll always be right. But that's why the teacher has to say, explain your answer. That's very important. Yeah. Yeah.
Shabbos till Tuesday. Shabbos is over. Whenever we.
Well. No. Yeah. You're 100%.
So by not saying you're not being machal Shabbos.
No. You're 100% correct. You're not being machal Shabbos. It's obvious that Shabbos is over when it's over. But midrabanan, it's a rabbinic tree. Midrabanan, you're not allowed to do malacha until you make a declaration of Havdalah. So it's an Isser D'Rabbanan. In other words, it's an Isser D'Rabbanan to do malacha till you declare that the holiness of Shabbos is over. Because otherwise... Yeah. Yes, that's correct. But I called that Havdalah type 1. Yeah. But you're right, 100%. I mean, nobody's going to be executed by a Sanhedrin because they did malacha Monday morning. Right. In fact, this is a good excuse if you don't feel like going to work. You can say, well, I didn't make Havdalah. I couldn't come. So I want to finish the story with Rav Chaim. So after Rav Chaim told the guy that there's much more agreement than machlokas, so the Chavetz Chaim spoke to Rav Chaim, whatever business he had, and then he's going back on the train to Radin. And he's lost in thought. He's with somebody. And after an hour, he says to the person, that Rav Chaim is amazing. He really is right. So the way they explain the story, when the person asked Rav Chaim, why is there so much machlokas? Rav Chaim had to go through the whole shas in his mind to determine it. It took Rav Chaim 5 minutes. It took the Chavetz Chaim 1 hour, but they both went through the whole Talmud, and they said, Rav Chaim is right. Rav Chaim is right. They sometimes describe two great Gedolim when they argue in learning. They almost never have to say anything. It's just a bunch of references. He says, Tosfos and Gittin says, no, Ran and Chulin. Each one knows what the other one is talking about without ever having to say it, without ever having to check it. They're just so familiar with all of these Makairis. But the issue of machlokas, again, is a good one, and the Rosh Hashanah explains that it's the nature of the Torah that Hashem wanted there to be interpretation of human beings, of Chachamim, to be able to apply the Torah to these situations of life. Okay, so this is the issue of Kiddush and Havdalah that I wanted to talk about, just to clarify why Borei Morei Ha'esh is a little sui generis. Now, let me mention one other interesting point about Borei Morei Ha'esh. That is, you may recall that the only time we do Borei Morei Ha'esh, we only do it Motzei Shabbos, and we do it Motzei Yom Kippur. We don't do it Motzei Yom Tov, because on Yom Tov you're allowed to use fire. You can't light a fire, but you're allowed to use fire, so we don't make a bracha on that. But Yom Kippur is like Shabbos. You can't light fire or anything else. But you may recall over the years that there's some special requirement for the Havdalah candle that you use on Yom Kippur, that it has to be a candle that was lit before Yom Kippur, or a new candle that is lit from a pre-existing candle. You cannot just strike a match and light the Havdalah candle, unlike a regular Motzei Shabbos, where I can strike a match and light the Havdalah candle. No. So you have to say, Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chol. Of course, 100% correct. Otherwise, you wouldn't be allowed to light. That's right. You always have to say that. Now,
what if you have a yard side candle?
That's good. That's fine. The only thing is, remember, a Havdalah candle is supposed to have several wicks. So the yard side candle may only be,
light for one of them.
Yeah. So, but you can light your Havdalah candle from the yahrzeit candle. Yeah. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly good. Now, this is given a name. This is called Ner Sheshavas. It had to be a fire that rested, meaning it was there, and it was not used for forbidden work. So for Yom Kippur, Motzei Yom Kippur, you have to have Ner Sheshavas. For Motzei Shabbos, you don't need Ner Sheshavas. Why is there a difference? Because Motzei Shabbos, the main reason I make the bracha is to thank God for the gift of fire. So whether it's a new fire or an old fire, it makes no difference. I'm thanking God for the gift of fire. I can light a new fire. Motzei Yom Kippur, that's not the time that God gave us fire. Motzei Yom Kippur, all I'm saying is that until now I couldn't use this, and now I can use this, so it has to be something that you could have used and didn't use. Right? That's what the bracha is saying. Therefore, 100%, therefore, when Yom Kippur is on Shabbos, and Motzei Yom Kippur is Motzei Shabbos, you do not need Ner Sheshavas, and you can use a regular Havdalah candle. The chumrah of Ner Sheshavas is only when Yom Kippur does not fall out on Shabbos. Exactly right. So that's kind of the explanation of that. Yeah.
Another interesting thing is of a man who and making Havdalah for his wife.
Right. So that's what I mentioned the last 5 minutes last week. That if a man heard Kiddush in Shul, he can certainly come home and say it for his wife, no question. If a man heard Havdalah in Shul and had kavanah to be Yotzei with Havdalah, then according to Ashkenazim at least, the man should not make Havdalah for his wife because maybe she's not chayevet. So for him, it's a bracha lebatala. She is permitted to do it based on the Ramah, but I cannot do it for her if she's not chayevet. According to Sfardim, there'd be no problem with that because she's chayevet in Havdalah, therefore he could be motzier in Havdalah, again, just like he's motzier with Kiddush. So the problem you're raising is a problem, but it's only a problem for Ashkenazim. It is not a problem for Sfardim. Yeah.
So you said the woman can make Havdalah, but what about all the children?
Can a woman be motzi the children?
Right.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. If they are above bar or bas mitzvah, she cannot. Well, okay. I'm sorry, I scratched bas mitzvah. If there are boys above bar mitzvah, she cannot. For the girls, even if they're above bas mitzvah, she could, because they're no worse than she is, no better than she is, and the like. If the kids are below bar or bas mitzvah, there's also no problem with her doing it, because it's only because of chinuch, so chinuch can be with her doing it as well. But yeah, you're 100% correct. If there's a boy that is bar mitzvah, at least for Ashkenazim, a woman should not make Havdalah for that boy. He should make his own. He has to make his own. That's exactly.
Or make for her and the children.
Yeah, whatever she prefers. She could make her own, or he can make it for. He could make it for everybody. Boy, that's bar mitzvah. But for the girls, there's no problem because whatever she is, they are. So the chiyuv or lack of chiyuv is going to be exactly the same. Now, again, I'm going around in circles a little bit because eventually I'm going to get to a central point, which I'm not going to reach today. But let me just mention another halacha of Kiddush that's very, very relevant. And this is not a halacha for Havdalah. This is the rule of Ein Kiddush Ela B'Makam Seuda. Kiddush can only be recited in the place where you have your meal. Now, we'll have to define that term. Now, let me go over the Gemara where the Gemara discusses this. The Gemara discusses the minhag of reciting Kiddush Friday night in the Beit Knesset. Right? The minhag was to recite Kiddush, and is in many places. In fact, that's the Ashkenazic minhag, but it goes back to Talmudic times. Kiddush was recited in Shul Friday night. So the Gemara discusses the question. Let's assume I'm not married, or let's assume my wife was in Shul. Do I have to make Kiddush at home again if I heard it in shul? Am I Yotze with the Kiddush of shul? Rav, the great Amora Rav, says, I'm Yotze. I heard Kiddush, I'm Yotze. Shmuel, Rav's great colleague, and we paskin like Shmuel, says, you're not Yotze. Because even though I heard Kiddush in shul, but since I didn't eat anything, Ein Kiddush Ella b'makam Suda. You're only Yotze Kiddush where you eat. So the Gemara then asks the very obvious question. So if nobody is Yotze with Kiddush and Shul, why are we making Kiddush and Shul? So the Gemara's answer is, we make it for orchim, poor people, who used to be fed and they would have their meals in the Shul. So for them, it's a valid Kiddush. Now, based on this Gemara, this is a Gemara. There's a machlokas, the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, which is also Ashkenazim and Sfardim. The Shulchan Aruch rules that since Bisman Hazeh, already in his time, it was not customary for the poor to eat in the Beit Knesset. They would be invited to homes. Therefore, you shouldn't make Kiddush the Beit Knesset. So the minhag of the Shulchan Aruch is that Kiddush was no longer recited in Shul Friday night, because if the only reason to recite it is to be motzi, the orchim in the Beit Knesset, if there are no orchim who are eating in the Beit Knesset, you shouldn't make the Kiddush, and it's a bracha Havdalah. This is Rav Yosef Karo. The Ramah says, however, like Ashkenazim never let go of a minhag, it says, once Chazal established this custom, even if the reason no longer applies, it becomes a permanent custom of the halacha, and therefore the Ramah says Kiddush is recited the Beit Knesset even though nobody is Yotze. So the question then becomes, so you're not Yotze. You got to make Kiddush at home because ain't Kiddush el b'makam suda. You're not Yotze, but you make it. So the question becomes, how can you drink it? In other words, let's assume that I was asked, right? You're not allowed to eat before you hear Kiddush. That's a general rule. So how can the guy who makes Kiddush drink the wine if he's not Yotze, because it's not a place of his Seudah? Then there's a prohibition on him drinking the wine. So there are a number of different ways that halacha gets around this particular problem. Solution number one is you give it to a katan. You give it to a child below bar mitzvah or a girl below bas mitzvah because they are allowed to eat before Kiddush. They're considered to be weak or whatever it is. They don't have that prohibition. But then the question is, how young? Let's assume you do it by giving it to the kid. How young? So some say the kid should be old enough to be trained in mitzvah so they understand what Kiddush is. That way you're training them. Others say the other way around. Once he's old enough to be trained, you shouldn't give him the wine because he needs to be trained not to eat before Kiddush. So you have to give it to a kid who's below the age of training. Already you have a machlokas. Do I give it like to a 3-year-old or do I give it to a 10-year-old? Right? Some say it bedafka should be, well, 10 is a little old, but it should be an older kid who is being trained in a mitzvah. Others say it has to be a kid that you're not training in the mitzvah because that way he's allowed to eat before Kiddush. Yeah.
Could you deal with the issue of the minhag of standing for Yom HaShishi and sitting for the...
Yeah. I think I may be out of town today, time today, but I will address it. Again, technically, I'll just say technically, the paragraph of Vayichulu is not part of Kiddush proper. It is an introduction to Kiddush. Kiddush begins with the bracha on the wine and the bracha of Shabbos. Vayichulu is an introduction, and certainly if you didn't say Vayichulu, you would be Yotze, Kiddush Lagamri. But some say you should stand for all of Vayichulu because you're giving testimony that Hashem created the heaven and earth, and witnesses stand up. Others say that you can sit for Vayichulu, but the very beginning, Vayhi Ribayker, Yom HaShishi Vayichulu Hashemayim. Yom HaShishi Vayichulu Shemayim. The first letters of those 4 words are Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Shem HaMefarish. So that should be B'Amida. Now, there are many, many customs. Some only stand for Vayichulu Shemayim V'Aretz. Others will stand for Vayichulu and sit for the rest of Kiddush. And the reason they sit for the rest of Kiddush is that since Kiddush has to be part of the meal is established when you set yourself down. So the Litvisha custom and the Yeshivisha custom is we stand for Vayichulu and we sit for the brachos of Kiddush. Among many Hasidim and many other people as well, they have a minhag to honor Hashem that they will stand for Kiddush L'Gamri. So I remember in the OUisrael yeshiva, we follow the normal minhag. The normal yeshivisha minhag is to stand for Vayichulu and sit. And one time the Rosh Yeshiva came to honor us, to eat with us, and that was his minhag, but he didn't know what the yeshiva's minhag was. And he didn't want to change from the minhag of the yeshiva. So when we started standing, so we didn't know what to do. We were looking at what he was doing, and he was looking at what we were doing, up and down and up and down and up and down. So it took a few minutes to sort it out. But it's an amazing thing. You think about this. He's the Rosh Yeshiva. He founded the yeshiva, and he didn't want to deviate from whatever minhag we were doing. Like he wanted to respect, like we were like the balabatim, as it were. Not really. And he was trying to respect our minhag. Yeah.
In our shul,
yeah.
The Kiddush is made at the end of davening. There's no food in the shul. The Kiddush is outside.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to talk about this next week. There are problems. That's all I can tell you. You know, I was we had a bris last Shabbos in our Shabbos bris, and I was honored to name the baby. Now you understand there's a problem because on Shabbos you got to make Kiddush. In other words, before you make Brei Pri Hagafen, you have to make Kiddush. So the problem was all the food was in another room. So I asked them that, at least for me, for nobody else, bring in a piece of cake where I was so I could drink the wine and then have the cake to make it a meal. And for everyone else, we actually announced that, you're not Yotze with this Kiddush, but we'll make Kiddush again when you go into the dining room. But I'll talk more about it because Kiddush Makam Suda is an important halacha. Yeah, I'm sorry, you said something?
People stand the whole Kiddush and some people sit the whole Kiddush.
That's correct. That's correct. Baruch Hashem, the Minhagei Yisrael, Baruch Hashem, they're part of the beauty of our Torah. Okay, you all have a good week, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.